Hey, what's going on everyone? In this review, we'll be looking at the first lead suit from the 08th MS team, the RX-79G Ground Gundam. As always, I'll be reviewing this Master Grade Gundam in 4 categories: the build, appearance, articulation, and gimmicks. We'll be giving each a score from 1 to 5, so at the end we can tally it all up for an average score. Hopefully I can help you decide if you should pick up this model kit. Now let's get right into this build. First off, this kit came out way back in May of 2000, which was right about when Master Grade started to find their footing. Needless to say, kits from around this time period can be kinda hit or miss. After building this kit, however, I can safely say this Ground Gundam is definitely a hit on Bandai's part. The build for this Master Grade is really great, especially for its time period. The manual can be a little dated in places, but if you're patient, even a beginner can make their way through it. Both the legs and the arms have a full inner frame. There are 4 screws, however, 2 for the shoulders and 2 for the elbows, but in comparison to a G Gundam kit, it's practically nothing. There's also no need to glue any of these pieces down. He's pretty sturdy as he is. On top of that, there's no mandatory places to paint either. Pretty much everything comes molded in its correct color. However, as with all older school Master Grades, there are quite a few places you can upgrade your build with some basic detailing. Here's a list of some of the stuff I did. First off, I applied black paint to the vents on the side of the head. Panel lining looks okay, but paint is so much more consistent. Thankfully, the side parts that need the paint are individual pieces, so they're really easy to pop off, paint up with a Gundam marker, then put back in. After that, I added a dab of black paint to the inside of these guns on the chest. These guns are really prominent, so this is a great little touch-up you can add. I also went with black for the line on this red piece, just to make it stand out more. Same for this panel line on the side of the chest and the inner frame of the knee. A little side note though, this gray rectangle on the front of the knee is actually supposed to be white. Having said that, I actually kinda like it, even if it isn't anime accurate. I know that's weird to hear me say, but I don't know, I just think it looks kinda cool. All in all, the build for this kit is great. It's a little dated in terms of engineering, but when you think about how this came out less than a year after the Gundam Alex 1.0, it kinda gets a pass. I'll give the build for this kit a solid 4 out of 5. I'd say this would be a great second or third kit for beginners, maybe even a good entry into the Master Grade line of model kits. Now let's see if his appearance holds up as well. The proportions of this kit are just great. Yeah, the head may be a little too large and the arms a little too thin, but everything else looks pretty good. I also really love the colors of this kit. Maybe it's because I'm used to seeing it all torn up like it is in the anime, but the colors of this Master Grade are really bright and saturated. I especially love the off-white of the armor. It's dark enough to set it apart from other Gundams, but not so dark to where it feels cheap, you know? The panel lining here is also really great. There's no needless tick marks or random lines, it's all anime accurate stuff. I love it. Now on to the decals. All the numbering, lettering, and triangles are dry transfer, which is just fantastic. You actually get the names and numbers for a few different units too, which means you could buy 2 or 3 of these kits and make your own MS team. The usual caution signs come on a sheet of peel and stick decals. An interesting addition to this kit are these extra vents. Yeah, you actually get an extra set of vents you can glue onto this guy. I guess they're for if you want a more realistic take on this Gundam. I mean, I doubt I'll ever use them, but they're a nice little addition. You also get a second set of handles for the shoulders. You get these round ones from the anime, and these more streamlined ones. I, as always, went with the anime ones, but it's a nice little afterthought on Bandai's part. The appearance of this kit is just phenomenal. The proportions are pretty good, I love the colors, you get all the decals you need, and you even get a few optional parts. I'll give the appearance of this kit a near perfect score of 4.5 out of 5. As much as I like the proportions, they could have been done slightly better. Okay, time to take a look at his articulation. As always, let's start at the feet. You get absolutely nothing here, they're just 2 big bricks. The ankle guards do move though. The ankles themselves are on a weird ball joint and a hinge, so you get great movements forward and backwards, but not as much as you'd like side to side. The ankle armor kinda gets in the way too. The knee gives you a little bit more than a 90-degree bend. It's above average for its time period, but nothing really that great. The hips are the old style ball and socket, so you get the usual forwards and backwards kicks, but not as much as you'd like in terms of splits or spins. There is a weird extra hinge though, that allows you to move the whole leg forwards and backwards. It's supposed to help with crouching poses, but honestly it doesn't do that good of a job. The skirts move as expected. The back skirt is locked in place though. The chest is connected to the waist with a ball joint, so you get decent spins, but not too much else. The chest itself is just a brick. There's nothing going on here aside from the cockpit opening up. The arms are connected to the shoulders via a ball joint, so you get full spins and you can even move them up and down a little bit. The shoulders can pop forward ever so slightly. It's really hampered by the shoulder armor though. The actual arms have the usual 360 degree spin on top, almost a 180 degree bend from the elbow, and the wrists are on ball joints. The hands are the old style trigger finger split. Unfortunately, this means there are no pegs. The head is on a single ball joint, so you get some basic movement out of it. Honestly, the articulation is where this kit starts to show its age. You can really only get this guy into 2, maybe 3 poses. I'll give the articulation for this build an average 3 out of 5. It's a shame because if any Gundam should be able to pull off good ground poses, it should be the Ground Gundam. Lastly, let's take a look over these gimmicks. First up is the machine gun. Aside from the ammo pack, it's completely gray, so it doesn't exactly stand out. This guy also has serious issues holding this gun up, by the way, because of the lack of pegs. It's not as bad as the ARC 78-5 though, because the handle is a bit smaller. Next are the beam sabers. They function just how you would expect, nothing really interesting to see here. After that you get a beam rifle. It requires a lot of painting though. Yeah, it turns out all of this gray is supposed to be white. If you've ever tried to paint white over a darker color, you know just how much of a challenge this can be, so I straight up just didn't bother. The shield of this kit is really cool. Not only do I like the design of it, but it has a really cool feature too. You can actually put it on the ground and attach his final weapon, the artillery cannon. Yep, that's the big weapon for this kit. It's this massive cannon. It's so big in fact that it comes in multiple different sections that you screw together. You store all these different sections in this dedicated backpack. I really like this idea. Having this cannon on his back at all times makes me way more likely to use it, rather than just put it in a Ziploc bag and forget about it. Also, he isn't nearly as back heavy as you'd think. Maybe it's the lack of articulation in the chest, but it's pretty easy to get this guy standing up straight. It can be a bit of a challenge for him to actually hold the cannon though, because the arms really don't pop out that far. So pretty much every pose you do with this thing is going to look awkward from certain angles. And don't forget the lack of pegs on this kit. Still, it looks good when it's in that Zeta Gundam pose I like so much. You get 2 optional sets of hands for this kit, but unfortunately they're completely useless. It's just a set of open hands and closed fists. As for the gimmicks of the actual suit, there's really only one, and that's the beam saber holders on the inside of the legs. They function pretty much how you would expect, but it can be a bit difficult to get the beam sabers in securely. Still, it's more of a positive than a negative and is a really inventive way to store the beam sabers. All in all, this guy comes with all the basics, but the lack of pegs really hurts here. The backpack for storing the cannon is great though. I'll give the gimmicks for this kit a slightly above average score of 3.5 out of 5. In theory, these gimmicks are great, but in practice, they're kinda hit or miss. Okay, now let's wrap this up for an average score. The build was a 4 out of 5. It's actually aged really well. The appearance was a 4.5 out of 5. This kit just looks great, and there are even a few options for customization. The articulation was a 3 out of 5. This is where the kit starts to show its age. You can really only get this guy into 2 or 3 poses. And finally, the gimmicks received a 3.5 out of 5. It's above average, mainly because of how many weapons you get, but the lack of pegs really hurts here. Tallying all that up, dividing, and of course rounding, this Master Grade Ground Gundam receives a 3.8 out of 5. But more accurately, it receives a 75%. That may not seem like that high of a score, but remember, this kit came out way back in 2000. It's closing in on 20 years old, and it still compares to modern Master Grades. Really, this kit is a great way to add the Ground Gundam to your shelf. I don't think there's any point in waiting for a 2.0 here. This is one old school Master Grade that still holds up pretty well. Okay, feel free to leave any questions or comments you have about this kit below, and I'm more than happy to get back to you. Also, feel free to recommend more Master Grades for me to review, and I'll see what I can do. You can also follow me on Instagram, by the way, so we can connect a bit more often. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.